Welcome to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social podcast, and I'm so glad to be here. And my promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and your social media marketing and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I am so stoked today to have Katja Rusanen with me. Welcome, Katja.
Thank you so much for having me.
And could you tell my audience a little bit of what you do and how you got into it and everything?
Sure thing. I am a transformational story coach and spiritual mentor, and I love helping purpose-driven entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers to transform their limiting inner stories into empowering ones so that they can do the work that they feel called to do in the world and share their gifts. And how I got into this work was because I had a limiting inner story that I carried within me for a long, long time. And that started when I was just 16 years old, living in a small village in Finland. So that's where this accent comes from. And I fell in love for the first time. And, you know, the first love, it's all magical. But unfortunately, my love story did not end with the happily ever after. It ended when I heard the news that my boyfriend had died by suicide. And that was a very crushing moment for me. And the grief that I felt was overwhelming. And my mind was going through every single detail and every single word that I could remember over and over and over again, trying to find the reason why, trying to find an explanation. And I felt that I should have saved him. I should have known. I'm very intuitive, but I just had not seen this coming. And I started to feel that if I would have been more attentive, more attractive, more everything, I would have been able to save him. This wouldn't have happened. So simply, I wasn't enough. And that was the limiting inner story that I started to carry over. And that influenced a lot into my life. And so much so that there was a moment afterwards that I was in such a dark place that I almost took my own life. But luckily, there was a glimpse of light in my very dark mind. And that made me to turn back and just choose life. And that started my healing journey and finding the way through the darkness and grief and finding ways how I can transform this situation. And a lot of that was how I was, and this is of course now, like years later, but I see now that it was a lot to do what meaning and purpose I give to those events that I went through. And that is really my mission now, to help others to overcome challenging life experiences and turn them from a stumbling block into a stepping stones.
That's incredible. Your testimony there is really incredible. I mean, so many people have taken their lives, and I feel like, you know, you came to that point. You know, we all have had somebody that has probably, that we know or heard of, that has committed suicide, and then you hear these amazing stories of the people who surrounded that person, or 7 degrees of separation from them, and they move on in some way. And I'm just curious, because you probably struck a note with somebody, I'm sure, but what really, you said you even came to the point, well, first you blamed yourself, then you came to the point of thinking that maybe you weren't enough, that you should have known, that you should have been able to save them. And then you came to the point where you wanted to take your own life. And then you came to the point where you moved beyond that and then started this incredible journey of business. What do you think was that pivotal point that made you move forward and not take your life?
It was, I believe that was a grace, and it just touched me in the right moment. There was an openness within me that allowed that grace to come in, and just see that I felt the love that my parents had for me. And I was like, okay, I carry this pain, but I don't want to pass it forward. Like, I don't want my parents to feel this pain that I'm feeling right now. And that was the love was pulling me back.
Right. And so, with that comes your incredible story, and, from negative to positive, which I've known you now for about 3 years. And I feel like I watch your Facebook lives, and I see some of your social media posting, and I feel that you just had an amazing transformation. And so, you presented yourself as a story coach and a spiritual transformation coach.
Spiritual mentor.
So how does one, like with a story coach, for instance, what do you coach when it comes to people's stories? Is it a reframing? What exactly is it? How do you help people with their stories?
So I started helping people with their origin story, the story for entrepreneurs that they share. But I soon realized that there was lots of blocks that people had sharing those transformational, inspiring moments from their lives. And I realized that the work that really called me forward was helping them with these inner stories. Like, if you are not sharing your origin story, which is the story how you got to do what you do right now, if you're not sharing it, then their question is, why not? And there might be another story within you, because what I mean with the inner story is the story that we tell ourselves who we are, what we are capable of, and what our life can be like. So it's interesting to see what are those stories that we tell within us. And I help my clients to transform these stories from these limiting stories that might prevent us or slow us down from doing what we want to do here in the world, into empowering ones that support us and support our efforts. So they are now no longer those events that we went through, that they are no longer holding us back and preventing us to do what we came here to do. So that's the work that I do with my clients.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, it's so funny. You probably don't know this about me, but I started out as a business coach. And before that, I just had a 9-to-5 job. And then I worked the midnight shift at a hospital where I worked with, psychology patients with mental illness. And then I also worked with addiction. And I came into this whole thing realizing that I no longer I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm sure you get a lot of that when you're working with people. But the other thing is that I started to realize I kind of found my story is kind of weird, because I don't have any, anything traumatic that brought me to the point of going into business. But I started out being just a business coach.
Yeah.
And literally social media was my happy accident. I grew my business coaching business with social media. So I loved it. And then this is what I realized, and this is where you come in, because I realized that the business owners that I work with, it's not the services and the products that they sell. It's their mindset. It's the way they think. It's those stories that they tell themselves. And I think, one of mine was, I remember the very first time I went to a networking event and walking into a room with a bunch of suits, and feeling that I remember it. I could still see myself in that room thinking to myself, I'm not good enough for these people. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's a story a lot of people tell themselves. And so I want to address that, because I know that there's probably a lot of people on the line that are either thinking of starting their own business, or they don't feel they're enough that they can continue to do their business, or whatever it is. What do you, when somebody has that story, the story of not being enough, how do you help them? What is some things that you would, reframe for them, or help them reframe for themselves, I should say?
Perfect question. And what I do is to work on 4 different levels. And first thing is to see what are the thoughts, like, okay, there is this story that you're telling, I'm not good enough. And that definitely is a very common story. I had it myself. And when you are having that story, it can be very challenging to get clients. That was my experience, until you find the ways to overcome and transform that story. So one of the things is like, okay, that's one story. And what else are you telling yourself? What are the thoughts? So exploring your thoughts. And once you have done that, it's also like, how does it make you feel? So acknowledging and recognizing the feelings within your body, because often we might feel tension, we might feel something somewhere in our body. So if there would be one place where you carry that sensation, where would it be? So just explore your body and find that spot, and just be with that without trying to change or make that thing go away. You're just being with that sensation, allowing it to have your full attention, and even send it love if you can. So we are just getting comfortable with the sensation in your body. And then another thing, this is like a triangle, the mental, emotional, and then the physical level. It is like seeing what are the actions or non-actions that are happening because of this story that you carry. So maybe you avoid reaching out to people or just offering your services as you are carrying this story, because you just have this story going on that who would want my services because I'm not good enough. So you might be not doing things, or maybe you are doing some things, like, for example, you need to study another certificate and another certificate, and you feel like it's never enough. You always need to study something more. And that's very common with the clients that I do. They have so much wisdom. They have multiple certificates and multiple diplomas on different areas, because they always feel that they need to do something more. So it's becoming aware of those 3 things. And when you have that awareness, then we would explore. And this comes from the spiritual level. It's more like seeing things from soul's perspective. And I believe that we are here to learn and grow. So what are you learning through these experiences? And so that would be bringing a new level of perspective, seeing your situation. And once we find that, we often move towards gratitude. And that is a very, very uplifting energy that helps them to transform the situation. And you can then implement and decide on new thoughts, new way to you, how you want to feel and what you would like to do or not do in the future. So you kind of find a alternative way that you start then integrating into your life and business.
Yeah, I mean, this is all good. Absolutely. I resonated with so much that you had to say there. And it's interesting, I have colleagues in my life that I can see the trap of the certifications and the PhDs. And then, they just keep on going, and they're always in school and they're always learning. I have a colleague that is like a personal trainer, and she has every single certification that I don't even think there's anything left. I think they have to create new ones for her. But I see it, it's that striving, to like prove yourself to the world, where, really, here's a little secret out there for everyone that's listening, is that, you really, when you're working with your clients, you just have to know a little bit more than they do so you can help them and serve them, because that's why you got into business in the first place. And, so all good stuff, Katja. And I want to like bring this and turn this to a different subject now, because both me and you are actually entrepreneurs. And, a lot of people, want to know, what is that like? So I'd love to know what you enjoy most about being the CEO of your own business.
The keyword for me is freedom, like having the opportunity to plan your own adventure. Like I can choose my timing, I can choose when I see my clients. So having that freedom, and that has allowed me also to travel. My business is totally online because I love traveling. I love living in different countries. So that was the setup I had from the start, that I wanted to have that freedom, that if I choose to move a different country, I can do that because my business is online.
Yes, I mean, I share that same freedom, and just to be able to, some places have been hard. Like when I've been in Nairobi, I lost internet for a very long time. So sometimes it just doesn't work out. But, now that I have somebody working for me, that literally I can do some of those things and travel.
Yeah, I should have said like, as long as there is internet. So
yeah, I mean, it's so funny. It's so funny because this hotel we stay at is supposed to be like a 5-star, but I would say that in the United States it's probably a 2-star or a 3-star. And every once in a while we don't have any hot water. And I'm the type of person that, like, when I shower, I need to like blow dry my hair, and it takes a long time for my hair to dry. So I really do need a blow dryer. But, a lot of times when I'm in Nairobi, I literally have wet hair. It's so funny.
It's different.
I always call it a first world problem. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
But, we always a lot of people talk about the glamour of being in business for yourself, the freedom, the right to do whatever you want, when you want to do it. And, you could, take a day off whenever you want, but, there's some challenges. And what would you say is the number one challenge out there for entrepreneurs when they're starting out or their own businesses?
So I struggled when I started. I was working as a supervisor in one of the world's leading business banks. And when I jumped from that, being an entrepreneur, I thought like things will take off within a year. And as I said yes to my calling, so come on, universe, send me the clients. Here I am, and willing and ready to serve. But didn't happen like that for me. Like it took some time to start getting clients, and that was a real struggle. And when you had that story as well, like I'm not good enough. So I had a lot going on in my mind, like having that whole thing getting bigger and bigger. And it really brought me into my knees. And it didn't turn around until I said yes for having support, because somehow, somewhere I had bought into this belief that I just needed to know how to be an entrepreneur just like that. So I thought like, okay, I'm clever. I have been able to figure out the very complicated banking system. So how hard can it be to figure out this entrepreneurship? And that's my tip for you. Do not ask that question, because the universe will show you. So it was just like allowing myself to have the support that helped me then to start having those light bulb moments, and allowing me to move forward on my journey, because we are now meant to do this journey on our own. That has been one of my key lessons. Like being an entrepreneur, it's a lot to have a support, a lot to have also colleagues and people you can bounce ideas with, like we have done in the various masterminds, like having that opportunity to have support on your way.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine. I would probably not have grown that much as I have grown if I didn't take the leap of faith and and look out, for somebody to support and mentor me along the way, because you know what? We don't know it all. And the bottom line is we need having someone to bounce something off really does give us perspective in a sense, especially when we're doing our own businesses. And, I have some local groups that I belong to, and I want to challenge everybody out there. Don't do 2023 alone, whether it's going to some, networking group, or, possibly you want to take your story to a different level and reframe some stuff, working with Katja and getting the support from her. And she does have a really wonderful Facebook page too, that you can get a lot of support from. But whatever that may be for you, I don't do it alone, because when you're doing it alone, all of a sudden that little voice starts talking that shouldn't be talking, that you kind of need to shut up every once in a while. And hey, it's like, you can't do this. You're not enough. You're not making enough. Nobody's going to buy your stuff. I have it, whatever that is. And so I really, Katja, you hit it right, the nail right on the piece of wood there, because it's amazing. The other thing I wanted to just ask you, if there was like one other piece of advice that you could give to someone that's, maybe two things, maybe somebody who's just starting out and is kind of discouraged, or somebody that's been in business for a while and is discouraged, what would you say to them?
Your work really matters, and your story really matters, and your gifts were given to you for a reason. So yes, sometimes we come across these challenging experiences, challenging times, but let that reason why you felt called to do the work that you feel called to do in the first place, let that pull you forward. Because when there is that willingness to do, that will give you the ability to do, and also have that openness to have support. That's really, because I did it the hard way. I was trying to do things on my own. So just allow yourself to be supported. That's why I'm really a strong advocate now for having support on your way, because you are not alone. And your gifts really can make a huge impact in somebody else's life.
Absolutely. And as we close, Katja, I just want to, if there's anything that you want to offer to my audience, please do, because I know there's probably someone out there that might need some help. So.
Sure. Thank you for this opportunity. And I do indeed have a gift. And this gift is especially for those entrepreneurs who are doing everything right. Like, you are following things and you are following strategies, you are taking action, but you are not making the money you want, the impact you want. So that is a moment and situation where you might have a limiting inner story holding you back. And it's not because those strategies don't work for you. It's because you have this inner story that holds you back. Because this inner story also influences your energy. So you might do things right, but then this story might just send out different signals for people, and they are now picking up your offer, your invitation. So I help in this guide, 3 Inner Stories, that blog Coaches and Healers Reaching 6 Figures. I will share there how you can start turning these stories around. And I give you also a 5-step process on how to transform them, because I want you to have the freedom to reach your financial goals and reach the impact and the income you want to have in the world. So it is, again, giving yourself that freedom. So let me help you to transform those inner stories and through this guide.
That's awesome. I want to thank you so much again for being a part of my podcast. And to everyone else out there, I'll see you soon. Have a really, really great week.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram at BizGoneSocial for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.